as a certainty. We have an opportunity on the 22nd of May to change history. Now, it may take a lot longer. I hope we get it. And I hope in law it's there, it's ours, it's our right. It may take us a few more years to change people's opinions and to change attitudes, but we must have a successful day on the 22nd of May. So before I finish, I'd like to thank Joe Noonan from Yes Equality Cork, Link. Oh, there are so many organisations who have added their voice to this. All the LGBT organisations, obviously, the Students' Union of Ireland, the Women's Council of Ireland, UNICEF. The list is endless. But it's the work that you people have put in, not just in the last 5 years, 2 years, 6 months, and the work that you'll continue to do, but the work that started many, many years ago when it was illegal to be gay, when it was a very, very difficult place to live, when people felt compelled to leave their homes, to emigrate. Please, you know, things have changed. Let's make this a permanent change and vote yes on the 22nd of May.
Thank you, Eilish. One of the many people in the room who have played a significant part in a very long campaign to bring us to where we are now is Kieran Rose. Kieran is from Cork. He's working in Dublin. I first met Kieran in 1981 in the Key Co-op, which was then being gathered together, windows being nailed closed so that they would keep some bit of the breeze out, and collections going on for bricks. It was quite a phenomenal event in the early 80s to establish the place which would be a safe place for people to meet from different communities or for different campaigning purposes. We used to have, in the classic time honoured way, meetings about meetings about meetings in that place, and Kieran was at most of them. And he is one of the people, together with Arthur Leahy and others, who lit the spark that led to the political campaign, the very effective political lobbying campaign that ultimately meant that homosexual life was no longer a crime in Ireland. So he is one of the driving forces behind that and behind the scenes as the development of the debate has progressed in Ireland over the last number of years. And you're very welcome back to Cork, Kieran. Thank you. We're going to have just 5 short personal stories of about 3 minutes, 4 or 5 minutes each, and it's to mark really the fact that this is a personal campaign and this is about individual stories. The first of which will be from TJ, who I'd like to join me now, and he'll give you his own reason as to why he would like you to vote and get everybody that you know to vote yes on the 22nd of May. TJ.
I remember when I was about 14, growing up in rural Tipperary, going to a secondary school run by nuns. And like most 14-year-olds at the time, I had only one thing on my mind: hurling. And when I was asked, as was done, by girls would I meet their friend or would I go with their friends, I did, because I felt that's what I was supposed to do at the time. But I found girls more of a distraction to my hurling than anything else. Sex or sexuality wasn't an issue for 14-year-old TJ. But then something happened. The village next to us at home is where the local Garda barracks is, and a new sergeant was appointed. He moved in with his family, and his family were 2 sons who were twins, they started attending our school. And I still remember the first day I saw them. This was the first time in my life I saw another person as something beautiful, good looking, hot. And of course, all of a sudden, every hormone that lay dormant in my young body started to erupt. I couldn't think of hurling anymore. But with that sudden awakening of hormones, emotions, sexual attraction, lust, came something else. A dark fear came over me. This wasn't right. This wasn't normal. This was wrong. This was what was not supposed to happen. But I figured it was just a phase and I grew out of it. But of course, I had to fight these feelings because they were bad, they were wrong. They were so bad and wrong that homosexuality was illegal and frowned upon by the society I lived in. But as my phase continued, and even intensified, I started to react against it, to try and counteract it by having more intense relationships with girls and hurling, by teasing and even bullying other guys I saw as less masculine than me, to try and de-gay myself. I started to grow away from my family and friends, become more private and introvert, because now I had a dark and evil side to me. I even refused to acknowledge to myself that I might be gay. I shoved those feelings deep within me, where they grew into something very destructive and negative. I wasn't normal, I hated myself, and I knew society hated me also, or at least that's what I thought. 80s and 90s rural Ireland wasn't a place for gay people, and I did not want to be gay. So I wasn't. I got on with my heterosexual life, finishing school, getting a job, going to college, having girlfriends, and playing hurling. But deep within me was still that 14-year-old TJ, struggling, crying, hating himself, living in fear of what he knew was true. Society's and the church's attitudes towards gay people did not help. I felt I wasn't normal, and all I wanted to be was normal. So I repressed, and I lived a lie, and I hated that 14-year-old TJ. I spent years living that lie, in the fear that people might find out I'm gay. Now, I stand in front of you, strangers, family, friends, fighting for equality, because I know I'm normal. I know there is nothing wrong with me. I'm not bad. I am not intrinsically evil. I'm just TJ. I admit I'm damaged because of my past attitudes towards gay people and towards myself. Attitudes that I got from the society I lived in. This is why I'm here today, and this is why I'm involved with Yes Equality Cork. Because I want to, and I need to change the attitudes of society. I'm here today to ask you to think about all the 14, 15, 16, 17-year-olds who today are struggling with who they are, who are listening to us adults debate on marriage equality. But think of the consequences a yes or a no vote will have on those 15, 16, 17-year-olds. The power of a yes result will say to them, yes, you are normal. Yes, you are equal. Yes, you can be yourself. You can love who you fall in love with, and society will stand by you and support you and see you as equal. Our society will cherish all of the children of the nation equally. But a no result, on the other hand, will say something totally different. I fear it will give the message, you're not normal, you're not equal. The people of Ireland see you as different and less than any other 14, 15, 16 or 17-year-old. You're different. No young person wants to be different or unequal. Marriage equality will send out such a huge positive message to the younger members of our society. So I challenge all of you who believe in equality not to think of the benefits to yourself, but to the huge positive benefit you'll make to the generations coming behind us. We've come a long way in the last number of decades in this nation, but now is a chance to go even further and to make this a better and more equal country and republic. So finally, I want to say sorry to my 14-year-old self for outing him yet again. Sorry to my family for being distant and private in the past. Sorry to my first few boyfriends who I insisted our relationship be secret. Sorry to the gay students I taught over many years for not standing up for you. May 2015 is time for Irish society to take another step in our development as a mature, modern nation and republic, and not just send a message to the young people of Ireland, but throughout the world, that we respect and treat all people equally, and that love is love and not a thing to be classified. All love is equal and good. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Rebecca.
Thanks a million, Joe, and to the organisers. Thank you for the invitation to speak. My name is Rebecca Loughrey, and I'm going to say a few words from the perspective of a parent. So I'm here today with my husband Robbie, who's hiding down the back, and I'm speaking on behalf of both of us and our family, most of whom are here today as well. So we have 3 children, Sarah, Jack and Joe. And it is about 2 years now since Jack came out. He's now 16 and a transition year student. I should start by saying that I have his permission to be standing here today, but like any typical 16-year-old, this was conditional on him not having to actually stand here and listen to me. He gets enough of that at home. So our 3 children were born and reared in Cork. They've all had the exact same upbringing, they live in the same house, they go to the same schools. They're all part of the same community, and they were all reared in the exact same way. They have the same parents, the same grandparents, the same extended family. We love all our children equally and are equally proud of all of them. Yet one of our children, while equal in our eyes, is not equal in the eyes of the state. And the country that we live in does not recognise the rights of one of our children. 2 of our children have the right to marry if they so wish, one of them does not. While Jack is fortunate to live in a time where he can come out and receive huge support and acceptance from his family, friends and school, and he's lucky enough to live in Cork, where he's part of 2 brilliant projects, Cork Gay Project, hello Dave Roach, and Link, Cape Moynihan, as part of their fantastic youth group. Unfortunately, he is not fortunate in that he lives in a country where he's discriminated against because of his sexuality. Robbie and I always thought we had a strong understanding of equality, social justice and human rights. But it was only after Jack came out that we realised the true meaning of equality. And this was because we felt the pain of inequality, and it is a physical pain, when you realise that one of your children does not have the same rights that the other 2 have. Like any parents, we don't want second best for our child, we want equality. So we would ask people to turn out and vote yes on May the 22nd. This amendment will guarantee constitutional equality for lesbian and gay citizens. It is important, as previous speakers have said, that we're not complacent and assume the amendment will be passed. We need to work to ensure it is passed. Those of us that already have the right to marry need to work as hard as we can to ensure that all of our sons, daughters, friends, brothers and sisters have the same right. So to conclude, we just want to congratulate the Yes Equality Cork team on this great event and compliment them on the strength and the dignity of this campaign. We're proud to be part of it, and thanks for the invitation to speak.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. My name is Joe Noonan. I'm a father of 4 children, and my view is that the opportunity to marry, access to marriage, is not a luxury, it's a necessity. And when we're deprived of necessities, we suffer. And we have ample evidence of that from our own experience, but we have objective evidence from, for example, the Irish Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Children. In their quite magnificent statement issued a couple of days ago, they point out, based on their experience as the largest organisation in the country dealing with children and children's welfare, that they see children and hear from children who call them in distress suffering because they cannot marry. It seems absurd. Children don't marry. But children, of course, grow up, and children are acutely aware of what their landscape ahead of them is when they're growing up. They're growing up within a family context. They're growing up observing their peers. They're growing up looking forward and dreaming. And the ISPCC says if that dream is not there, it upsets children, it upsets young people, it upsets adolescents. And they see that it leads to feelings of exclusion, of isolation, of being undervalued. That's the evidence. And that evidence is irrefutable. So what, we ask, does the No campaign do in the face of that evidence? What does it say? It says nothing. Because it has nothing to say about it. It is not speaking about the concerns of real children. It is not interested, apparently, enough to speak about the concerns of people growing up and being cared for in families where they may be a gay parent or a couple of gay parents rearing them. Those children haven't featured in this discussion, and there's an air of silence about them, which has been punctured spectacularly by the ISPCC. And we know in this country what silence does and what harm can go on under the cloak of silence and behind the veil of secrecy. We know that just up until 1984, children, newborn, the President of the state on the day of their arrival, was the status of illegitimacy. Happy birthday, child, you're a bastard. Until 1984. Quite remarkable now that we look back. And yet that is how it was. And that was changed. That change was resisted, but that change happened. Secrecy and silence are bad things. They're bad companions, really. And when we, those of us who are straight, grew through our adolescence, think back to those days, those of you in the room who are far removed from them now, and remember how crazy a time that was in many ways. It was fun, it was chaotic, it was confusing, it was cringe-inducing at certain times, but it was there, and we lived through it, and we survived it. And we survived it partly sustained by the fact that we were in a constant conversation. We were in a sustained environment where what we were going through was what everybody of our peers was going through. It was the stuff of soap operas on television, it was in the newspapers, it was everywhere around us. It was the chat with our friends, it was what you'd overhear on the bus. What did he say? Do you fancy that one? All of the conversations that were part of our developing sexuality as we were going through adolescence. And now think of the silence, in contrast, that you would have experienced if you happened to be an LGBT teenager. None of that. You're on your own. You can't even talk to your parents, perhaps. You're looked at differently. You feel you're looked at differently. Think of the harm that that does and see how logical it is that the ISPCC should be calling on the voters to vote, to remove that cloak of silence, to remove that sense of being isolated and that sense of being different. I'm a parent of 4 children. One of them is gay. I love my children the same. They are all the same. Every parent thinks their child is a genius and wonderful, and now I think all those things. And yet, it took my son quite a while to be able to say that to his parents. And this is in a household where we were active supporters and allies with gay organisations since we were teenagers ourselves, both of us. just happened that way. And now I